thank you so much, Harry Parker, for joining us today. This is really exciting. I appreciate talking to you again and talking about the wonderful production from Oklahoma City Rep, Grapes of Wrath. So
my
you were
pleasure.
the director of the production and brought so much to it. So I'm eager to talk to you about your memories of the production. So, you know, Grapes of Wrath, it was such a special production in so many different ways. It was the official national production of the 75th anniversary of Grapes of Wrath. It was a co-production with Oklahoma City University. And then, of course, there was the partnership with OETA that resulted in it being recognized with an Emmy Award in 2015. And then, of course, there's a theme of human resilience in face of trying times. And boy, is that ever a relevant story right now. How do you think this play about Oklahoma endurance in a time of crisis touched you?
Well, it's a play that I had long wanted to work on, and I never thought I'd really get the chance. It's such a difficult show to produce well because it's a big cast. The age range goes from children to grandparents, and it's just expensive and difficult to do. And when Don asked me if I might be interested in doing it in this co-production with City Rep and OCU, I jumped at the chance. It wasn't easy for me to commute from Fort Worth while I was still holding my day job teaching at TCU, but it was certainly worth it to get a chance to return to Oklahoma, my home state where I grew up, and to work on this iconic Oklahoma story, as you say, about resilience. I do believe that there is a unique spirit in Oklahomans. I think the thing that drew me to the piece and why I'd always loved the novel and why I'd always loved the old John Ford film with Henry Fonda is this depiction of the human spirit that is stronger than the troubles that surround us, even when those troubles are profound. And they certainly were in the Great Depression, and they certainly are now. And yet we are reminded by artists like Steinbeck and like Ford, the filmmaker, and by the Steppenwolf folk who put together that wonderful stage version of the Grapes of Wrath. We're reminded that the human spirit is stronger than anything the world can throw at us, particularly if we are focused on helping one another, if we are not selfish, but if we are in fact as generous as we can find a way to be, then in fact we shall not only survive but thrive. And that's the message of the Grapes of Wrath. And it was a thrill. It was a thrill to work on that show. And for me, it was the first show I had directed in Oklahoma in decades, despite the fact that I kept my teeth in theater in Oklahoma back when I was a kid. So it was an incredibly meaningful experience for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about the fact that returning to Oklahoma. I mean, what exactly this means? What was special, and what do you think that an Oklahoma audience brought to this production? Not just the fact that it was filled with so many wonderful actors from Oklahoma and from around the region, so many talented people, but then there's that wonderful chemistry of theater that brings the audience into it as well.
That's right.
And
that's right.
I'm curious how an Oklahoma audience affected this.
They were very emotional performances. There were a lot of people in that theater at OCU who I think felt great ownership in this story. You know, I remember growing up in Oklahoma in the 60s when Dewey Bartlett was the governor, and he had a campaign to try to reclaim the term Okie. And there was a big publicity campaign and billboards and lapel pins that all said, "Proud to be an Okie." That was a term that had fallen into a different kind of connotation during the Depression, and it was used as a derogatory term for all the people who were migrating from the Dust Bowl states like Oklahoma to California. And in my memory as a kid, I can still remember my parents and my grandparents talking about this attempt to reclaim the term that was only partially successful because I think for a lot of folks who still remember the Depression, the derogatory connotation was deeply ingrained. For most of us, it's now a history lesson and not a personal experience. And so I think for the Oklahomans that got to see that city rep production just 5 or 6 years ago, that was an opportunity for us to re-own this formative, iconic period of great hardship that was finally one in which we were able to reconnect with helping other people. It was a time of fear and hunger and sadness, and also a time of rediscovering what it means to care for one another.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I'm curious, as a theater educator yourself, what are your thoughts about Oklahoma City Rep's program for doing co-productions and mentoring young artists?
Well, it's fantastic, and it's critically important. The theater audience, perhaps you know this, is always considered a graying one, and live theater doesn't always seem to be the most exciting thing for people under 40. So if you have a group of young students in a university setting who are studying the art form, professional theaters have a sacred obligation to connect them quickly with the profession so that they can begin to uh, receive that additional training, get a foothold in terms of connections and the people that they meet. It's something that City Rep has done extraordinarily well, and those connections are invaluable. You can't, as an educator, I know you can't replicate them. Uh, you can't replicate a professional experience on campus. At TCU, we do a co-production every other year with one of the great professional theaters here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And so City Rep's dedication to that program is going to be one that is extremely fruitful for the next generation of artists, not just participants, but audiences in Oklahoma.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Well, I can't end without giving you an opportunity to maybe share some kind of special memory you have about the production here. Is there anything that, when I remind you of Grapes of Wrath, what pictures pop into your head?
Um, so many. It was a rich and fulfilling and frustrating and exciting experience in so many ways. One of the things I remain grateful to Don for extending the opportunity, making the invitation to me. It meant a lot to me. I think he knew that it would, and it wasn't easy for me to balance my job and commute up there. The first person I think of is my daughter, who had just finished her MFA in directing and was looking for work, and she was my assistant on the show, but she was also my chauffeur. So she did the commute, she did the driving for me. And that helped a lot because I was grading papers. I was on my laptop. I was trying to get all of my academic work done while I was rehearsing this pretty humongous production and trying to keep that straight. Another great memory for me were the few folks that I got to connect with that I had known when I was the assistant artistic director at Lyric Theater back in the early 80s. So to get to work with the late Michael Jones again, we had actually met when we were about 15 or 16 years old, and we were both in high school. We were the same age. I went to Northwest Classen High School, and he went to Midwest City High School, and we met at a musical theater workshop taught at the old Oklahoma Theater Center downtown. And so we'd been friends most of our lives. And so to get to work with Michael again, to get to work with Jeannie Cooper Scholler again, who I have admired for so many years, those were special treats to get to be in a rehearsal room with them. And then the great cast that Don put together with Pam and Cameron and the wonderful David Coffey from down here in North Texas, and all the OCU design faculty. What a terrific team to put together that set and the lights and the props and the costumes, the truck. So many pieces that helped elevate that production. And it was such a pleasure to work with those colleagues, all of whom were new to me, but we had an incredibly fruitful and collaborative experience putting that show up. So it was a thrill. I had I have so many family members and friends who live in Oklahoma. I had cousins come from all over the state. I had high school friends who I hadn't seen since high school show up to see the show. So it was a lovely personal reunion for me too. So I'm very grateful, and I think of that production with great fondness.
Well, thank you so much. It's just, it was a terrific production. Under your hand, it spoke to people. And I think it meant so much to the cast, to the crew, to the audiences, and obviously to Oklahoma City Repertory Theater. So thank you so much for everything you've done. And we hope we'll see you back soon.
I would love that. It was my great, great pleasure. And I have so much affection and respect for City Rep. Keep going and keep producing incredible art. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate professionals like you. So, and friends.
You bet.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.